is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 65 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today we're going to be speaking with Elizabeth Solomeina, who is a jewelry designer and the founder of a New York City-based fashion collective, Flying Solo. And on this episode, we're going to talk all about what it takes to launch a successful fashion brand and why talent isn't everything. And Elizabeth shares her own story and the challenges and processes and things that she had to work through in order to really build her brand and her idea from the ground up. So I really hope that you guys enjoy hearing that. Some of the other things that we talk about in this podcast includes how to know if you need a mentor or not, the importance of production and manufacturing when you're in the fashion business, what it means to really stand out as a designer, and some of the things that you need to do if you want to make sure and you want to test your concept with your consumer. So there's a lot of things that we talk about, and I really think that anyone, whether you're a creative, whether you're in fashion or not, can take away a lot from this episode. So before we get into it, if you haven't already, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. If you want to get updates on future episodes, that is a great way to do so. If you're listening in on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, just hit that subscribe button. And if you really want to, after hearing this episode, if you want to leave a review, you can do that as well. Make sure to follow us on social at Dreams and Drive, and we're across the board, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you can use the hashtag Dreams and Drive to engage with us on that front as well. If you want today's show notes, just go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 65. I really hope that you guys enjoy this one. It's on the shorter side, so let me know if you like episodes that are a little bit shorter too. All right, enjoy you guys. Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for being a guest on today's episode of Dreams and Drive.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to hear, all about your jewelry designing background and your launch into entrepreneurship and just how you got to where you are today. So I think our dream drivers as well will be really interested in hearing your story.
Oh, well, I should start with that my mom is a jewelry designer. So I was designing jewelry pretty much my whole life. I just never thought I would start a brand or anything like that. So I started my career as a graphic designer. So I was in creative fields my whole professional life. And then in 2013, I decided to start my brand and kind of go back to my roots. And that's how I started my collection. And Flying Solo was something that came up from there because I was a designer. I was doing my line. I was selling in boutiques worldwide, but something was definitely missing from that. Like, I was missing other designers. I was missing that community that will, that will surround me and help me grow. And then I was also missing the place that I can truly show my entire collection in one place because, when buyers are buying for boutique, they tend to buy super safe. They buy something that will definitely sell through the season. And I knew that there are customers for other exciting pieces that I create, and they never tend to buy those, the boutiques never tend to buy those pieces. So I was like, what if we can create a store within designers and just break all the rules and don't deal with wholesale anymore and just open our own boutique? How exciting that will be. So that's pretty much how Flying Solo started.
So let's take it back a little bit. One of the things that I love to ask all our guests on the podcast before we get into any questions is what inspired you as a child? So if I had to say, who was Elizabeth as an 8-year-old, what would you say?
I was definitely a very curious 8-year-old. I was into science. I was into, I love physics, for example, when I was a child. But I love beauty. So I could have spent hours just picking up the perfect flower and just watching nature and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that's how I was when I was 8 years old.
So when did you, you were born in Russia, right?
That's correct, yes.
And when did you come to the United States?
It was exactly 10 years ago. So this year was 10 years anniversary in New York for me.
All right. So when you came to the U.S., did you always were you were already accomplished designer in Russia, right? So
Yeah.
what were those first few years in the U.S. like for you?
I mean, it was pretty awesome. I came here for a job. I was very lucky because I came here straight into workplace, so I didn't have to struggle with that. New York is definitely a place to be if you're in any kind of creative field. It's so much creativity going on here. It's like it's so many designers, so much art going on, so much fashion going on. It's definitely exciting for creative people just to be here and then collaborate with other people. It's even more exciting. So yeah, that's how I obviously I didn't make all the connections right away, but the more you hear, the more people you know, the more creative projects you get involved into, that will lead you to even more creative projects. And yeah, I think I was just growing those connections for first couple years here.
Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure I say the name of your line right. It's Solomeina or Solomeina? How do you say it?
Well, I guess American name will be Solomeina.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how we pronounce it.
How do you say it, with the correct way then?
Well, in Russia, my brand name is my last name, so it's pronounced Solomeina.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you launch that line?
So my line was launched in 2013.
Okay. It was launched in 2013. So what were one of the, because there might be a lot of people listening in who may want to launch their own jewelry lines one day. So maybe walk us through the steps that you took to make sure that you had a good concept for launching.
Well, it's kind of happened naturally, actually. I started making things again. As I said, my mom is a jewelry designer, so I was designing jewelry my whole life. I just never thought that I'll one day will be in New York having my own brand. So I started designing again, a few pieces here and there, and my friends absolutely love it, and they started buying from me. I was like, okay, that's a great sign. So, and I was noticed through creative community, and it was definitely a sign for me that I have to go with that. And then I created my other collection, and so I'm right now in the third collection. So that's how it all started.
So, what do you remember your first sale?
Yes, absolutely. It was a friend of mine, and she was so excited to have it. I didn't even, it was a sample that I had, and I was wearing it, and she was like, I absolutely want to have it. I was like, well, it will probably take me a couple weeks. Are you willing to wait? She's like, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It took me probably even a little more, because when you don't have your production cycle figure out, it always takes longer to deliver to the customer. Yeah, that was my very first customer, one of my good friends.
Mm-hmm. Did she like it when she got it?
Oh, she loved it. She actually keep ordering from me to this day. I think she's one of my biggest fans.
Do you remember any of the challenges you faced early on in those early days of launching the brand?
Yes. Couple challenges that I face is when you go on your own to make your own brand, is that you're basically alone. So you're your own company, and most of the time you'll be just sitting in your studio working on pieces alone, or you'll be in front of a computer sending emails again alone. So I really miss people around me, because when you're in the creative field, you usually surround by other creative, and that's what's inspiring, and that's how the beginning was for me.
Okay, so you made sure that you were around a community of other creatives who could keep you going and keep you motivated.
Yeah, I mean, later on, yeah, I was getting more and more friends, and that was supporting me. But at the beginning, yeah, you're kind of alone when you're starting out as a fashion designer, as a jewelry designer.
So I feel like, launching any business can be tough. Were there any specific resources that you invested in early on to help you just understand the business side of jewelry?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely listen. First of all, I listen to a lot of books. Like, you basically need to know how other people became successful, and there is like a couple books I would love to recommend to your listeners. One of them is called Glitter Plan. It's about those girls who made Juicy Couture. It's something about them that like inspires you. The way they started the brand is just, let's just make fun stuff. Let's just make it exciting, and that's one of my favorite books. Another book that really inspired me is. I don't remember the title, but it's the guy written by the guy who is the CEO of Zappos. So they talk about how they started Zappos.com and like how the whole thing came together. It's a really great book. So that's the first resources how I started out.
Okay, no, that's great. I'm trying to look up the book now. Is it Delivering Happiness?
Yeah, Delivering Happiness.
Okay, yeah. I have to add that to my list because I love reading, and I think, a lot of times, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that when you're starting out, you should get a mentor, or do you think it's important to kind of just go all hands in and try to figure it out yourself? Like, what route did you take, and what route would you recommend others who have an idea and want to see it come to fruition?
I mean, if you have a mentor, awesome. If you have a person that inspires you, also awesome. I have a couple people in my life, I mean, other than my mom, who actually taught me how to make jewelry, but a couple of people that I met throughout my design career, that's been inspiration my whole life. And they weren't my mentors in that way, but they were just my inspiration. Once in a while, we'll talk about like random things, and they'll keep me going. One of those people is one of my creative directors that I used to work for. He actually owned the biggest design studio in Russia, where I used to work at the very beginning of my career. And it was amazing. Like, I learned so much from that experience. And and I have another mentor who was one of my teachers, where I used to study in Moscow, and we still talk a lot. And so I didn't have a mentor, but I have people who kind of followed who I still talk to, and they follow my career, and like we still inspire each other.
That's good. So what, thinking back about this journey that you've been on, what do you think is something hard that you had to, like something that you had to learn the hard way when it came to your business?
Production.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so production is something that you have to learn the hard way. Unfortunately, a lot of young designers will tell you or tell me right now, they're like, no, I cannot make it at a certain price point, and cannot make this, I cannot make that. It so comes down to how customer respond to what you are making. I mean, you can make amazing things, and then you can tell me like, look, that costs that and that for me to make, so I cannot make it any lower than a certain price point, but customer doesn't respond to that. So if you do not figure out your production to do it in a way when customer can actually afford to buy what you're selling, like, you have no business. So I learned the hard way that sometimes you have to look into your not even necessarily to make the labor cheaper, which also could be part of it, but to make sure that the process that you're applying is affordable for your customer that you're going for. Because, I mean, there are different markets, obviously, so you can do a very high-end jewelry, and then you can afford to spend more money on your process. But the line that I start with, I was targeting people like me at that moment, fashion lovers, but people who who might be spending, I don't know, somewhere between $100 and $250 per ring, and they still want it to be quality. They still want it to be made out of like silver and some semi-precious stones, and it has to be pretty. So that was my market, like for the first two collections. And when I made my very first prototype, actually it was more expensive to make my very first prototype than my sales price was at the end. So my retail price was like at the end of the story. So I was like, oh my God, how is it possible? So obviously I have to do at least 4 times of what I produced it for that will be my retail price. And like, it does make any sense. So you go back to manufacturing, you're trying to figure out the process, you're trying to simplify the process that you make it so it will be less labor involved. And yeah. Manufacturing is the very key to having successful business.
And do you manufacture your stuff in the U.S. or do you export that part of the business?
Well, first of all, the prototypes I handcraft myself, so I don't hire anyone for those things, which saves me a lot of money. But manufacturing, casting and stuff like that, I do in New York, in Midtown, New York. So I don't export anywhere. I really like to I really like to control the production, make sure that the quality is up to my standards. So that's why I cannot really go anywhere overseas to do so.
Yeah, and that just also makes sure, I feel like that sets your brand apart too, right? Because so many other jewelry designers may be exporting their designs overseas, and it's mass production, so the quality isn't really there. So if people really want to know that they're getting something that is truly being designed, they can trust that with your brand, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Everything manufactured here, every single piece. Before I put it to sale or ship it to the boutique where I'm selling, or sell it here in Flying Solo, I look at every single piece myself, make sure that the quality is right, and only then I'll put it to sale.
So tell me about Flying Solo. What inspired that idea?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I was a designer who just want to sell my things that I thought, my customer really likes. So I already have my online business. I had, but I noticed that those key pieces that I would love to show to the customer, boutiques were not buying. Boutiques want to buy something very safe. Obviously, they want to make sure that they sell through the season. So I realized that I cannot afford to open a store myself. But what if it will be a bunch of designers like me will come together and make the store? So that's pretty much how the idea of Flying Solo came together. We did test this idea in a pop-up store before. So the months before, we did a month-long pop-up nearby in Soho as well, and we realized the idea was working. So designers love it, customers love it, and we're like, okay, maybe it's time for us to open a permanent location. And we open with 30 designers. We open Flying Solo, and then currently it's 45 of us here.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty big crowd, yeah.
So when did you guys launch? What date was this?
So it was June 18th.
How did you get the designers that you wanted to have in the store? What was that whole process like?
Well, most of them were my friends because, the whole design fashion community is very small. I mean, it's big, but it's small. Everybody kind of know everybody. So most of the people came from the pop-up that we did before because they loved the whole experience and they knew there is future to that. And then we're friends of friends who also heard there's something amazing is going on and wanted to be part of it. And then the word spread. So when we expanded into 45 designers, there were some designers that just heard about us through different publications or through friends of friends, or find us in other ways and just reach out to us.
So when a designer wants to, be part of the collective, do they have to pay? Is it something where they get all the money for each piece that they're sold? How does that whole business model work?
And so it's very simple. We're basically sharing expenses for the whole place, and 100% of profits always goes to the designer. So it's like us owning the store in a very true way. It's only us designers. When you come into Flying Solo, there is no salespeople, so we don't have that expense. It's us designers working here. So it's a true collective.
Oh, that's really cool. And what has the response been like these past few months?
Amazing. I mean, people compare us with what, like in terms of style and everything, what Paris used to be a couple of years ago. People said that it's something that fashion industry desperately needed, and you guys finally doing it, because the future is in smaller brands getting together and actually, fighting the big brands, not like making sure that they make enough splash in the creative community. Because on our own, I don't think that any of us can, open the store right now, or like we're not in that place yet. So by getting together, we can actually make it happen.
Yeah, and I actually want to say that the reason why I'm interviewing you now is because I got a recommendation from Megan Cathari, who is one of the designers in your collective. So I definitely, think that the whole idea of creatives being for other creatives and designers being for other designers and wanting you guys all to win is something that I can definitely say I've seen it. I haven't even been to the store yet.
You should definitely stop by.
So let's talk about, some of the lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur, as a designer over the years. What do you think has been the best or the most important personal lesson you've really learned?
Just keep going. I think this is the most important thing. Sometimes, and I know that this is something that every single designer goes through, or anybody who has business goes through. There will be times when you feel that everything and everybody is against you. Nothing is working. You just have to keep going. You cannot give up in those moments. I think this is the only thing that everybody have to remember.
Was there ever a time that you felt like giving up, and if so, what did you do?
Sorry, what's the question?
Was there ever a time when you felt like giving up? And if so, what did you do?
Well, yeah, of course there was I don't think that it was ever a time when I know that I was giving up, but there were definitely times when you know that nothing is working. You put so much work, so much energy, and it's not working. You just have to remind yourself how much you already achieved, that so many things came together to make it happen, to make you be where you are right now. And yeah, it will be some bad days, but then there will be some good days after that. So that's how that's what I remind myself of, and that's how I kept going.
So let's talk about standing out, because I think that's something that a lot of designers often struggle with, right? How do you get people to know about your brand? How do you really stand out? So what are some of your tips that you may have for designers who really want to market their lines better?
Be original and be true to yourself, because I think a lot of designers want to go too commercial and kind of trying to see what others are doing and make sure that they're somewhat doing the same, or I don't know, you have to be true to yourself. So whatever you can bring to this fashion world, a lot of my collection, two of my collection are actually inspired by my background. So the latest collection is inspired by Baroque and Rococo Russian architecture. I mean, I'm Russian. I grew up with this. So I saw those amazing elements in architecture that inspired my collection. So that's how I design. I know the designer, some other designers in our collective, for example, got inspired by some other stuff that they were seeing through their life. So just be original, be true to what inspires you, and you'll create amazing things that people will be responding to.
So what's now, we talked about some of the challenges you faced early on when launching and just how being alone was something that you had to get used to. Now that you have Flying Solo, you also have your brand. What is one of the biggest challenges that you're currently facing, and how are you working through that?
No days off. That's something that I've been facing lately. How do I keep going through that? I have a lot of amazing people who surround me here, and that gives me energy to move forward. I know that if my work would have been something that doesn't inspire me, it will be hard to get through that without having some break from it. But since my work is like my inspiration and gives me energy, so it's manageable.
That's good. And for any aspiring designers who may be scared to, launch their own lines, or any creative out there who's not sure if they're good enough, what would you tell them?
First of all, there is no such thing as a true talent, because I know a lot of people that are amazingly talented but will never create a collection because they are way too scared. And there are people who did something and they learn from it and they grow and made more amazing things and learn from it and grow again and just start. If you feel in your heart that this is something that you want to do, you will learn the skill, you'll figure it out, you'll make something amazing. You just need to know that it's something for you. Do it because it inspires you. Do it because it will keep you up at night. Do it because this is how you want to spend your days, and then you'll come up with something amazing and beautiful, and people will love it, and you should be you shouldn't be worried then.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that you'll always be an entrepreneur and have your own line, or is there something else that you foresee yourself doing in the future?
I absolutely think that being your own boss is something that I love. Even though the joke goes you work 80 hours for yourself instead of working 40 hours for someone else. It's something satisfying to see that you create a plan for yourself and then you follow it and you see results. You're in charge of your life, and it's something that I think I'll be doing my whole life.
That's exciting, and it's so good that you know that that's something that you want to do. So let's go into our lightning round, Elizabeth. So this part of our interview is where I'm going to give you a prompt, and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind when you hear this word, okay? And this is going to be going with our whole driving metaphor. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So the first word is park.
Park, green.
Reverse.
Opposite.
Neutral.
Blend.
Drive.
Moving forward.
Okay. And last but not least, if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have the keys to success. So tell me 3 things, Elizabeth, that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
Passion, then great people who support you. I think it's one of the key things, because sometimes I wouldn't be able to do it if some people wouldn't tell me, you can do that. And what will be the third thing? I don't know. Make sure that you get enough coffee, I guess.
It's going to be some long nights, right?
Yeah, some long nights for sure. I won't be able to make it without coffee.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for telling your story and for sharing your keys to success. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online?
Yes, absolutely. So Solomeina.us is the website for my jewelry brand. And FlyingSoloCollective.com is the website for Flying Solo Collective. So if you're designers out there and you thinking of joining us, please reach out. There is all the contact information there. Reach out to me or just stop by. Our store, like just to remind everybody, we are located in Soho. It's 224 Mulberry Street. So any kind of design is very welcome to stop by and just chat with us if you like.
All right. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 65 with Elizabeth. I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing her dream driving story and her keys to success. And if you are a fashion designer or any type of creative and would love to share your designs, I really encourage you guys to use the hashtag Dreams and Drive. And I'm going to go in there and repost some of the things that you guys share. So make sure to follow us on social at Dreams and Drive and use that hashtag. If you want today's show notes, please go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 65 to view all the additional information that we have there. And please, 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 if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our Dreams and Drive channel wherever you are listening. Hit that subscribe button so that you get updates when we have a new episode coming out. I also would appreciate if you guys also want to show some love. Just go and leave a review, especially in iTunes. Those reviews help other people find out about the show. They help other people just know what the show is about. So go in and leave an honest review, and I'll be forever grateful. It's always so fun to do these episodes, and the community is growing week by week. I could not do it without you guys. So if you ever have any questions or feedback or suggestions, please, please, please drop me an email, Raina@dreamsanddrive.com. That's RANA at dreamsanddrive.com. As always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 66.